Are you ready to imbibe an entire kingdom of nutrition for focus, endurance, building resilience to stress, and strengthening the immune system? I'll show you how. I'm Christian Bates, and this is Longevity Power, and this is epic mushrooms. My new and improved, newly named, relaunched version of what I launched 8 years ago called Mushroom Immunity. Now, Mushroom Immunity was designed to be the most comprehensive medicinal mushroom product on the shelf, and in my opinion it was. But in the last 8 years, there have been more studies on medicinal mushrooms, especially on my favorite ones like lion's mane mushroom, cordyceps, and reishi. And they have actually isolated more compounds such as the triterpenoid fraction of lion's mane that is responsible for nerve growth factor. That's right, they're actually weird lipids or fat-soluble compounds in mushrooms that are great for your brain. And I decided to make a formula that maximized what we know now. In fact, I don't have any of the original 35 medicinal mushroom ingredients in this. This is entirely new mushrooms extracts. And I've worked with new manufacturers who have access to these remote, rural, one of these mushroom farms is on a remote island, and then take these mushrooms and extract them even stronger and more thoroughly than before. Okay, so Mushroom Immunity, I changed the name because mushrooms, even though they are so great for strengthening the immune system, they're for so much more, including focus and long burning energy and building resilience to stress. Mushrooms are really the most popular adaptogen. And adaptogens also come in the form of plants and animals, but medicinal mushrooms and adaptogens help your cells adapt to stressors. They help you thrive even in hairy situations, whether it's good stress like working out or bad stress like driving all day. These things curb that stress and help your body perform better and feel better. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of what's in here, which I do think you'll find quite fascinating, I want to tell you what to look for and what not to get when buying medicinal mushrooms. So medicinal mushrooms have three main life cycles. There are many aspects to the life cycle, but there's three main parts. It starts with the baby spores, which are like little floating seeds that go around by the billions from every mushroom and land somewhere. And then a small fraction of them actually land on a substrate that it can grow from. Maybe it's a log, maybe it's wood chips. It all depends on the species of the mushroom and the climate at the time. And when that spore starts growing mycelium, that's where the real mushroom organism lies, is that mycelial network of the substrate that it's eating. And once that mycelium has grown and matured, it's ready to erupt a fruiting body. And then once the fruiting body is mature, then it starts spitting out spores, and then the life cycle continues. In the United States, most medicinal mushroom products that are manufactured here are just cheap, raw mycelium, grown usually on grain like brown rice, sometimes corn or oats or wheat. And because the cost of labor is higher here, because we don't have as big of a history of manufacturing medicinal mushroom products, these products end up being really, well, all we can really do without making a much more expensive product that would be pretty prohibitive in price if we actually made strong extracts that became more expensive to produce. So most of the mushroom products on the shelf are just cheap raw mycelium that claim to do what the studies have shown, except that they have such a tiny fraction of active constituents that I'm very disappointed in a lot of these companies that continue to I don't know why they don't upgrade to a stronger extract. So, however, you can make extracts of mycelium, including the mycelium of lion's mane, which has a particular fraction of those brain-boosting compounds that's different from in the fruiting body of lion's mane. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So if the product you're looking at either just lists the mushroom name without specifying what form it's in, or if it does specify and it's raw mycelium, don't get it. You're just wasting your money. You're mostly paying for starch. I mean, raw mycelium is mostly starch. The mushroom can't actually completely eat up the entire grain, so you're actually still eating mostly grain that's just been a little bit fermented by a mushroom. Okay, now there's also spores. Most of the spores are going to be reishi spores because reishi produces a pretty substantial amount of spores. Usually don't see many spores if you see like a wild mushroom or wild reishi, but if reishi is grown and there's no wind around and it's kept covered, then that powdery spore builds up. Raw spores we can't really absorb, so we send the spores through a breaking of the cell wall process so that the spores are like at least 98% cracked cell wall, and that makes it so we can absorb all the nutrition in the spores. And spores are high in triterpenes and also have a little bit of polysaccharides, so they're really great for the immune system and the brain and adaptability. All right, traditionally, throughout thousands of years, humans have mainly had access to the fruiting bodies of mushrooms. And that's because in the wild, you can see a fruiting body and it's easy to clean. And if it is edible, it's easy to eat. Whereas mycelium in the wild tends to be locked up in wood that's not edible, hence why we use grains these days for mycelium. So most high quality medicinal mushroom extracts are going to be the fruiting body extracts. However, I would invite you to take it a step further and use standardized fruiting body extracts. That way, the standardization is where we say, okay, this extract is this percentage of this active constituent. So a lot of my products are now, a lot of these ingredients are 30% beta-glucans. Beta-glucans are the most powerful form of polysaccharides in mushrooms. There are many different polysaccharides that are also great, but there are also some polysaccharides that are just starch. So I stopped standardizing anything for polysaccharides and go after the beta-glucans. A lot of these are ethanol extracts and dual extracts, which means we use water and ethanol to extract these active compounds. Water pulls out the polysaccharides like beta-glucans mainly, and ethanol pulls out the lipid-soluble compounds like the triterpenes. Triterpenes are kind of like this activated extra special essential oil that's locked inside a mushroom. And when we can pull those out, well, those are going to give benefits. So there are triterpenes in reishi that impart a sense of calm. They're anxiolytic, meaning anti-anxiety. That's what makes reishi so famous as this kind of spiritual mushroom, because it really does make you feel quite spiritual. So when you're getting medicinal mushrooms, if you can make sure that it's a full spectrum standardized extract, and you also want to look at, make sure it's pretty high in some of these compounds. So if it's like 1% beta-glucans, that's no one really does that. But if it's 10%, that's all right. But if you're talking about 30%, then now we're talking like some real oomph. And because there are so many different species, there are 13 species in epic mushrooms, one could grab a lot of different products, spend a lot more money building up their shroom apothecary, their myco apothecary. But I wanted you to be able to just have it in one big, very comprehensive dose so that you know that you're covering the bases while simplifying things for your own life. Mushroom Immunity had 35 ingredients. 24 of those ingredients were 24 species of raw mushroom mycelium that were grown locally to me here in the Bay Area, California. And the rest were grown in other countries that actually specialize in medicinal mushrooms much more than the US and have made their mushrooms much more potent, more comprehensive, lower price, and in my opinion, higher quality. I mean, they're just, when it comes to China and also Russia, they are leading the way. And, one day I think that the medicinal mushroom space in the US will grow, like literally, and we'll have more to choose from, and that the competition will drive up potency and drive down price. But for now, I work with manufacturers from around the world to get the very best that the whole world has to offer. And yet I was so wanting that local California organic 24 species, super diverse blend in my original Mushroom Immunity, but I kept it low because I didn't want the whole thing to be mycelium. That was definitely against, I already knew that raw mycelium was no good, but I decided to let that go and upgrade. And so that's why this product has actually 17 ingredients instead of 35. And instead of 24 species, half of which we're only getting a very small amount of, I decided to cut the species in half as well, bring it down to 13, but give you the very best of these top 13, meaning really strong extract so that each ingredient actually has an oomph to it and nothing is being put in there. It is simply a synergistic compound. Everything has, boom, knockout intentions. Going through the list here of our ingredients, we're starting with my favorite mushroom, lion's mane, and we're doing just ethanol extracts of the lion's mane fruiting body and the lion's mane mycelium. Now, I just said mycelium tends to be weak, but lion's mane mycelium, when you extract it, has a different set of triterpenes from the fruiting body. The fruiting body lion's mane triterpenes are called hericenones, which have been shown, especially in recent studies, to boost nerve growth factor. They're great for our brain, and they're great for regenerating our nervous system. And the mycelium has these terpenes called erinacines, and together we're getting more nerve growth factor. And because we all live in an environment where we're exposed to thousands of neurotoxic compounds unleashed wholesale into the environment over the past over 100 years, and because we've all probably eaten like bad fats, which are no good for our immune system, and dealt with whatever stressors, we need all the help we can get in terms of nourishing and soothing and fueling our nervous system to perform optimally so that we don't get all stressed out and angry, but feel really empowered and focused. All right, next is one of my favorite mushrooms, is more than ever. I mean, I used to really love reishi, but man, I'm really digging lion's mane and cordyceps, especially cordyceps militaris, in which we can use the fruiting body. Cordyceps, this is a dual extract, by the way, in which we use water to pull out the cordyceps beta-glucans and ethanol to pull out the cordyceps triterpenes. In this extract, there are also a couple of compounds called cordycepic acid and adenosine, which are all related to adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, which is part of how your mitochondria, your cells, get energy. And that's why cordyceps has been used now for decades by Olympic athletes successfully as a great endurance adaptogen so that they can go harder and longer with whatever their sport is. All right, moving down the list, we got a whole suite of reishi extracts, including Dwanwood reishi crack cell wall spores, and also Junkao reishi fruiting body ethanol extract, which is the only ingredient here that's also in my epic reishi product, which is the other epic mushroom product at Longevity Power. So with all of these reishi extracts, we got a fruiting body dual extract, really high in triterpenes and beta-glucans. You're getting the most from reishi. And then going down the list of all these other top species like agaricus and turkey tail and like subterranean poria, which is this big bulbous underground mushroom that grows around pine roots that I find very fascinating. It has a long tradition in Chinese medicine. And there's also some species that weren't in the previous incarnation of mushroom immunity that you might be excited to get into your body, like shaggy mane, as well as tremella and auricularia. This is how you upgrade your mushroom stack. If you've been into mushrooms for health, performance, brain focus, but maybe you're like, wait a minute, am I really getting everything I can out of this kingdom of nutrition? Well, I'm telling you that based on everything I've learned about mushrooms over the last, I really got into them 15 years ago, but especially in the last 10 years, I feel like this is how you get onto all the goodness all at once. I just am super stoked. I've been feeling extra calm and clear since hitting this harder a few weeks ago. And, this just launched this summer 2020. A great time to take medicinal mushrooms. Did you fuel your immune system today? Did you give your brain the adaptability that it needs? Did you nourish your immune system and your cells and your gut and your ability to release adult stem cells so they can go to your immune system and all the other places in your body that you need? Well, according to a lot of research on mushrooms, adding in mushrooms is how we do that. That's how we optimize our body and become the peak performers that we are meant to be, so we can think clearly, do more with our life. All right, thanks so much for taking the time to learn about mushrooms. I hope you learned something. Whether you get epic mushrooms or not, I hope you go after the really strong stuff so that you are actually getting the stuff that works and not stuff that you hope works. If you have any questions, let me know. There should be a link below this video that you can click on to order yourself a jar of epic mushrooms today. My name's Christian Bates. Make sure to subscribe. There's so much room in my heart for you. I'll see you next time.